Hercule Poirot and Cook the Puzzle of the Vanished. Violin, Chapter 1. The Maestro's Lament. The chandeliers of Langstone Manor glittered like constellations, casting a golden glow over the assembled guests. The air hummed with anticipation, the clink of crystal glasses mingling with the soft murmur of polite conversation. Hercule Poirot, immaculate in his tailored evening suit, stood near a marble fireplace, his sharp eyes scanning the room. His waxed moustache twitched as he sipped a glass of crème de menthe, savouring the scene as one might a fine painting. The invitation to this musical soirée, extended by the enigmatic Lady Margaret Langstone, had intrigued him, not for the promise of music, but for the undercurrent of secrets he sensed beneath the manor's polished veneer. Captain Hastings, ever the faithful companion, stood at Poirot's side, fidgeting with his cufflinks. "Quite the turnout, eh, Poirot? Half of London's high society must be here," he remarked, nodding toward the crowd. "All to hear this Maestro Vivaldi fellow play his fiddle. Violin, mon ami," Poirot corrected gently, his voice precise. "A Stradivarius, no less, crafted in 1715, a treasure worth more than this manor. And Maestro Enrico Vivaldi is no mere fellow. He is a virtuoso, a man whose fingers coax the soul from the strings. But Hastings, observe, there is unease in this room, non?" Hastings frowned, his honest face betraying confusion. "Unease? Seems like a jolly affair to me." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Regardez! The smiles are too tight, the laughter too forced. Something is amiss, and Poirot, he will discover what." At the centre of the drawing-room stood Maestro Enrico Vivaldi, a wiry man with silver-streaked hair and eyes that burned with intensity. His presence commanded attention, though. His manner was restless. He clutched a velvet-lined violin case, his fingers tracing its edges as if to reassure himself of its contents. Beside him hovered Clara Beaumont, his protégée, a young woman with auburn hair and a strained smile. Her eyes darted to Vivaldi, then away, as if guarding a secret. Poirot noted the tension in her posture, like a bowstring pulled taut. Across the room, Lady Margaret Langstone glided through the crowd, her emerald gown shimmering. Her charm was effortless, yet Poirot detected calculation in her glances, particularly when they lingered on Vivaldi. The hostess had insisted on this performance, claiming it a cultural triumph, but Poirot suspected other motives. Near the grand piano, a lean man in a tweed suit scribbled in a notebook, Julian Harper, a journalist known for his scandalous exposés. His presence at such an exclusive event was curious, and Poirot marked him for closer scrutiny. The evening's programme began with a flourish. Lady Langstone clapped her hands, her voice ringing out. "Dear friends, tonight we are honoured by Maestro Vivaldi, who will perform on his priceless Stradivarius. Let us gather in the music room." The guests flowed. Toward the adjacent room, a high-ceilinged chamber adorned with gilt-framed portraits and a polished oak floor. A single chair stood on a small stage beside a music stand holding Vivaldi's score. The maestro stepped forward, bowing stiffly, and opened his violin case. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. The case was empty. Vivaldi's face drained of colour. "No, no!" he cried, his Italian accent thickening with panic. "My Stradivarius! It is gone." He clutched the case as if it might conjure the instrument back. Clara rushed to his side, her hands trembling, while Lady Langton's smile faltered, her eyes darting to the guests. Poirot stepped forward, his calm authority cutting through the chaos. "Monsieur Vivaldi, permit me, Hercule Poirot, to assist. When did you last see your violin?" Vivaldi's hands shook. "An hour ago, in this very room. I checked the case before dinner. It was here, I swear it." "And was the case ever out of your sight?" Poirot asked, his gaze piercing. "Only briefly," Vivaldi stammered. "I left it on the stage while I greeted guests. The room was locked, or so I thought." Poirot turned to Lady Langton. "Madam, who has access to this room?" "Only myself, the staff, and Mr. Grayson, the caretaker," she replied, her voice steady but her fingers twisting a silk handkerchief. "The door was locked, Monsieur Poirot. I checked it myself." Hastings leaned in, whispering, "A locked room, Poirot. Sounds like a proper puzzle." "Indeed, Hastings," Poirot murmured. "A puzzle that requires the little grey cells." Guests buzzed with speculation. Julian Harper scribbled furiously, his eyes glinting with opportunistic glee. Clara hovered near Vivaldi, her face a mask of concern, though Poirot noted her hands were clenched into fists. The Manor's staff, hovering at the edges, exchanged uneasy glances. Among them, Poirot spotted Mr. Grayson, a stooped figure with a weathered face, watching the scene with an unreadable expression. Poirot knelt beside the empty case, his gloved fingers tracing its velvet lining. A faint smudge of wax caught his eye, barely visible against the dark fabric. He sniffed the air, detecting a trace of lavender. Curious, for no one in the room wore such a scent. Rising, he addressed the crowd. "Mes amis, remain calm. The violin has not left this manor. Of that I am certain. Poirot will find it, and the one who dared to take it." Vivaldi's voice broke. "You do not understand, monsieur. That violin is my life, my legacy. Without it I am nothing." Clara placed a hand on his arm, her voice soft but strained. "Maestro, we will find it. You must trust Monsieur Poirot." Chapter 2. The Empty Case. The music room of Langton Manor, moments ago a stage for anticipated artistry, now lay under a pall of suspicion. The guests had been ushered back to the drawing room, their murmurs of shock and speculation muffled by the heavy oak doors. Hercule Poirot stood alone at the centre of the crime scene, his polished shoes silent on the gleaming floor. The empty violin case rested on the small stage, its velvet interior mocking the absence of Maestro Vivaldi's Stradivarius. Poirot's eyes, sharp as a falcon's, swept the room, cataloguing every detail with the precision of a watchmaker. Captain Hastings hovered near the door, his brow furrowed. "A proper mystery, Poirot. A locked room, a vanished violin. How could anyone pull it off under our noses?" Poirot raised a gloved hand, silencing his friend. "Chance, mon ami. The truth, it hides in the details, and Poirot, he will uncover them. Observez." He knelt beside the violin case, his fingers hovering over the smudge of wax he had noted earlier. It was no larger than a thumbnail, a faint crescent of translucent residue on the case's edge. "Curieux," he murmured. "This wax it is, not from a candle in this room. The manor uses electric lights, no?" Hastings nodded, glancing at the ornate sconces. "You're right. No candles here. Could it be from a guest's cigarette lighter, perhaps? Perhaps, Poirot said, his tone noncommittal. He leaned closer, inhaling delicately. The faint scent of lavender lingered, elusive yet distinct, like a whisper in a storm. His gaze shifted to the floor, where a single hairpin lay near the eye, stage, its silver glint almost invisible against the polished oak. "And this," he said, retrieving it with a handkerchief, "is not an ornament one expects in a music room." He rose, tucking the hairpin into his pocket, and surveyed the room's architecture. The music room was a fortress of elegance. High ceilings, walls adorned with pastoral frescoes, and a single door, now locked as Lady Langston had claimed. A tall window overlooked the manor's gardens, but its latch was secure, the glass unmarred. Poirot's fingers tapped his temple, his little grey cells humming. The room was locked, yet the violin is gone. This is no simple theft. Hastings! It is a performance staged with care. Lady Langston entered, her emerald gown catching the light. "Monsieur Poirot, have you found anything?" Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. "Madame, I have found much, but understood little. Yet," Poirot replied, his tone courteous but probing. "Tell me, who was in this room after the maestro placed his violin?" "Here, only myself and Mr. Grayson, the caretaker, to ensure all was ready," she said. "The staff were preparing the dining room, and the guests were in the drawing room. I locked the door myself at 6:30. "And you saw the violin then?" Poirot pressed. "Yes, I believe so. The case was closed, but Maestro Vivaldi had just placed it on the stage." Poirot's moustache twitched. "You believe so? Bien. And who has keys to this room?" "Myself, Mr. Grayson, and the housekeeper, Mrs. Ellis," she answered, her fingers tightening on her handkerchief. Poirot nodded, dismissing her for the moment, and turned to Hastings. "We must speak with the others. The maestro, his protégé, the journalist. Each has a role in this drama. Their first interview was with Maestro Vivaldi, who sat in a corner of the drawing-room, his face ashen. "Monsieur Poirot, you must find my Stradivarius," he pleaded, his hands trembling. "It is not just an instrument. It is my soul, my legacy." "When did you last open the case?" Poirot asked, his voice calm but insistent. "Before dinner, at 6:00. I checked the strings, as always. Then I greeted guests, leaving the case on the stage. I trusted the locked door." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And who was near the stage before you left?" Vivaldi hesitated, his gaze flickering to Clara Beaumont, who stood nearby, her face pale. Clara was there, adjusting the music stand, and that journalist, Harper, was lurking about, asking impertinent questions. Clara stepped forward, her voice sharp. "I was only helping, Maestro. I touched nothing but the stand." Her auburn hair was pinned tightly, but Poirot noted the absence of a hairpin that might match the one in his pocket. Next, they questioned Julian Harper, whose tweed suit seemed out of place among the evening finery. He smirked, his notebook clutched like a shield. "A theft at a soirée. Quite the scoop, Monsieur Poirot. I saw nothing, but I heard Vivaldi arguing with Clara earlier. Something about her wanting to play the Stradivarius herself." "Interesting observation," Poirot said, his tone neutral. "And where were you at 6:30 when the room was locked?" "Chatting with Lady Langston in the drawing-room," Harper replied smoothly. Ask her yourself. Poirot dismissed. Him, his mind racing. The wax, the lavender, the hairpin. Each clue was a thread in a tapestry of deception. He turned to Hastings. The maestro accuses his protégé. The protégé defends herself. The journalist watches all. And yet the room was locked. We must consider the staff, Mrs. Ellis, the housekeeper, and this Mr. Grayson, who knows the manor's secrets. As they moved to find Mrs. Ellis, Poirot paused by a side table, where a faint scent of lavender emanated from a vase of dried flowers. He frowned. Hastings, this scent, it is familiar, non? Yet these flowers are not fresh. Someone brought this fragrance into the music room. Hastings scratched his head. You think the thief used lavender to cover their tracks? Perhaps, Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. Or perhaps it is a signature, left carelessly. The little grey cells. They tell me this theft is no act of impulse. It is a plan, executed with precision. The housekeeper, Mrs. Ellis, a stout woman with a nervous demeanour, confirmed she had been in the dining room all evening, with no access to the music room after 6. Her alibi was corroborated by the staff, leaving Mr. Grayson as the final piece of the immediate puzzle. Poirot resolved to seek him out, sensing the caretaker's knowledge of the manor's nooks and crannies held a key. As the clock struck 9, the manor seemed to hold its breath. The violin was gone, yet Poirot felt its presence, hidden somewhere, within these walls. The game had begun, and Hercule Poirot, with his unmatched intellect, was ready to play. Chapter 3. Shadows of Envy. The drawing-room of Langstone Manor buzzed with the nervous energy of caged birds, the guests' whispers weaving a tapestry of conjecture. Hercule Poirot, his posture as impeccable as his reasoning, stood near a towering bookcase, his eyes fixed on Clara Beaumont. The young violinist lingered near a bay window, her auburn hair catching the lamplight, her fingers twisting a lace handkerchief. To the untrained eye, she appeared merely anxious, a devoted protégée distressed by her mentor's loss. But to Poirot, her every gesture screamed of secrets, secrets he intended to unravel. Captain Hastings, ever eager, leaned toward Poirot. Clara seems awfully shaken, don't you think? Poor girl, caught up in this mess. Shaken, perhaps, mon ami, Poirot replied, his voice low. But observe the tightness of her jaw, the way her eyes avoid the maestro. There is more here than concern. Envy, it is a shadow that darkens the heart, and I suspect it casts its pall over Mademoiselle. Beaumont, Enrico Vivaldi, sat slumped in an armchair, his silver-streaked hair dishevelled, his gaze darting accusingly toward Clara. The maestro's earlier outburst, that Clara might have sabotaged him, hung in the air like a sour note. Poirot approached her, his manner courteous but unyielding. Mademoiselle, a word, s'il vous plaît. The loss of the Stradivarius, it affects you deeply, non? Clara's eyes flickered, meeting his for a moment before dropping to the floor. Of course, Monsieur Poirot. The maestro is devastated. That violin was everything to him. And to you, Poirot pressed, his tone gentle but probing. You are his protégé, trained to follow in his footsteps. Yet I sense a tension between you. Tell me, what is its source? Clara's lips parted, then closed, as if weighing her words. He's a genius, she said at last, her voice tight. but he guards his spotlight fiercely. I've studied under him for years, yet he rarely lets me perform. He says I'm not ready, but I know I am." Poirot's moustache twitched. "And the Stradivarius? Did you ever play it?" "Never," she snapped, then softened. "He wouldn't allow it. It's his prize, his legacy. But I don't need his violin to prove myself." Her defensiveness was a spark, igniting Poirot's curiosity. He gestured to a side table, inviting her to sit. "Mademoiselle, let us be frank. The maestro believes you may know more about this theft than you admit. Why does he suspect you?" Clara's face paled, her hands clenching the handkerchief. "He's wrong. I was near the stage, yes, adjusting the music stand, but I didn't touch the case. I'd never betray him like that." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Yet betrayal, it is a word that resonates, no? Come, let us walk. The air, it clears the mind." He led her to a quiet alcove, away from the guests' prying ears. There, he produced the silver hairpin he had found in the music room, holding it delicately in his gloved hand. "This was near the stage, mademoiselle. Is it yours?" Clara's breath caught, but she shook her head. "I don't use hairpins like that. Mine are gold, not silver." Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. Poirot pocketed the pin, his mind racing. The lavender scent, the wax smudge, and now this denial. Each clue was a piece of a puzzle, but the picture remained elusive. He decided to probe deeper. "Tell me of your history with the maestro. When did you become his protégé?" Clara's gaze drifted, her voice softening as memory took hold. 5 years ago, in Paris. I was 18, playing in a small orchestra. He heard me and offered to mentor me. I thought it was my chance to shine, but—" She paused, her eyes hardening. "He keeps me in his shadow. Every performance, every accolade, it's always his." A flashback stirred in Poirot's mind, pieced together from whispers he'd overheard among the guests. 2 years prior, and for a Vienna recital, Clara had been promised a solo, only for Vivaldi to take the stage himself, claiming her unprepared. The humiliation had lingered, a wound unhealed. "This incident in Vienna," Poirot said. "It left you bitter, perhaps." Clara's cheeks flushed. "It was unfair, but I didn't steal his violin to spite him, if that's what you're implying." Before Poirot could respond, Hastings approached, holding a folded piece of paper. "Poirot, I found this in the hallway, near the music room. Door. It's addressed to Clara." Clara's eyes widened as Poirot took the letter. It was written in a hurried scrawl. "Leave the case alone, or you'll regret it." No signature, no other clue. Poirot studied Clara's reaction. Shock, yes, but also a hint of recognition. "Who sent this, mademoiselle?" he asked, his voice sharp. I don't know," she stammered. "I've never seen it before." Poirot's little grey cells hummed. The letter suggested a conspiracy, perhaps a warning from an accomplice, or a threat to silence her. He tucked the note away, his mind cataloguing its implications. "Very well, mademoiselle. For now, remain here. Poirot, he will find the truth." As Clara returned to the drawing-room, Hastings whispered, "Do you think she's involved, Poirot? That letter's awfully suspicious." "Suspicious, oui, but not conclusive," Poirot replied. "Envy is a powerful motive, Hastings, but so is loyalty. Clara's devotion to Vivaldi is real, yet so is her resentment. We must look deeper into the letter, the hairpin, and the others who circle this drama. The manor's clock chimed 10, its toll echoing like a warning. Poirot's gaze swept the room, landing on Julian Harper, scribbling in his notebook, and Lady Langston, her smile a mask of composure. Somewhere in this web of ambition and deceit lay the Stradivarius, and Poirot was determined to find it, before the thief played their next note. Chapter 4. The Journalist's Notebook. The drawing-room of Langston Manor, bathed in the soft glow of lamplight, seemed to tighten with every passing hour, as if the walls themselves sensed the weight of the unfolding mystery. Hercule Poirot stood near a rosewood table, his gloved hands clasped behind his back, his eyes fixed on Julian Harper. The journalist, lean and sharp-eyed, lounged in a velvet armchair, his tweed suit a stark contrast to the elegance around him. His notebook, a battered leather volume, rested on his knee, its pages filled with secrets Poirot was determined to uncover. Captain Hastings, ever the earnest observer, whispered, "That Harper chap looks far too pleased with himself, Poirot. Do you think he's hiding something?" "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice a low murmur. "A man like Monsieur Harper hides many things. His profession, it thrives on secrets, and his presence here is no accident. Observe the way he grips that notebook. Comme un trésor. We shall see what treasures it holds." Poirot approached Harper, his manner polished but unyielding. "Monsieur Harper, you are a journalist, oui? A seeker of truth, yet your eyes, they gleam with the thrill of scandal. Tell me, what brought you to this soirée?" Harper's lips curled into a sly smile. "A story, Monsieur Poirot. Maestro Vivaldi's performances are news, but his troubles, that's front-page gold. I heard whispers of his financial woes, debts, piling up, creditors circling. I came to see if the rumours were true." Poirot's moustache twitched. "And these whispers, they led you to the music-room, perhaps, near the maestro's violin case?" Harper's smile faltered, but he recovered quickly. "I was in the drawing-room all evening, chatting with Lady Langston and others. Ask anyone. I didn't go near the music-room after 6. "Yet you were seen there earlier," Poirot said, his tone deceptively mild. "Monsieur Vivaldi mentioned your impertinent questions. What were you seeking?" Harper shrugged, his fingers tapping the notebook. "Just doing my job. I asked Vivaldi about his debts, his protégé's ambitions, routine stuff. He didn't take kindly to it, but that's hardly a crime." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And this notebook of yours, it contains these routine observations, no? May I see it?" Harper's grip tightened on the leather cover. "It's private, monsieur. A journalist's notes are sacred." "Sacred, perhaps, but not above suspicion," Poirot countered. "A priceless violin vanishes, and you, a man who trades in secrets, are present. If you wish to clear your name, show me the notebook." After a tense pause, Harper relented, handing it over with a theatrical sigh. "Fine, but it's just notes, nothing incriminating." Poirot opened the notebook, his gloved fingers turning the pages with care. The scrawl was chaotic, a mix of shorthand and cryptic phrases. One entry caught his eye. "Vivaldi, deal gone sour. LM involved, 10K owed." Another read, CB wants out. Threatened. The initials were unmistakable. Lady Margaret, Langston and Clara Beaumont. A third note, underlined, simply said, "The broker, tonight." Poirot's little grey cells hummed. "Monsieur Harper, explain this deal gone sour. And who is this broker?" Harper's smirk faded. "Just rumours I picked up. Vivaldi's been borrowing heavily to maintain his lifestyle. Concerts, travel, that violin. I heard he made a deal with someone shady, maybe to sell the Stradivarius to settle his debts. As for LM, I was guessing, Lady Langston's been cosy with him all night. And the broker, just a name I overheard at a club. Could mean nothing." "Or everything," Poirot said, his voice sharp. "You deal in blackmail, perhaps. A man with such notes could hold much power over others." Harper laughed, but it was hollow. "Blackmail? You've got me wrong, Poirot. I'm just a scribbler, not a crook." Poirot closed the notebook, handing it back. "For now, I keep this in mind. But know this, Monsieur Harper. The truth, it cannot be hidden from Hercule Poirot." As Harper slunk back into the crowd, Hastings leaned in. "Blimey, Poirot, he's slippery as an eel. Do you think he's the thief?" "Possible, but unlikely," Poirot mused. "A thief takes the prize and flees. Harper, he stays watching, writing. He is a vulture, circling the drama, not creating it. But his notes, they point to a larger web. This broker, I suspect, is key." Poirot's gaze drifted to Lady Langston, who stood near the fireplace, her composure a fragile mask. The mention of her initials in Harper's notebook suggested a connection to Vivaldi's troubles. And Clara's name, linked to threats, echoed the mysterious letter found earlier. The clues, wax, lavender, hairpin, and now these cryptic notes were threads in a tapestry Poirot was beginning to weave. He beckoned Hastings to follow him to a quiet corner. "We must verify Harper's alibi with Lady Langston, but discreetly. And this broker, we need more. A man who deals in rare instruments, perhaps, or a figure pulling strings behind this theft." The clock struck 10:30, its chime a reminder of time slipping away. Poirot's mind raced, piecing together the journalist's motives. Harper's presence at the soirée was no coincidence. His notebook was a map of secrets, and Poirot sensed he was closer to the heart of the mystery. But the Stradivarius remained, hidden, and the thief, perhaps Harper, perhaps another, was still one step ahead. As Poirot prepared to question Lady Langston, a faint sound caught his ear, a soft creak from the hallway beyond. He glanced at Hastings, his eyes alight. "The manner, it speaks, mon ami. Let us listen." Chapter 5. The Locked Room Riddle. The music room of Langston Manor, now a silent witness to a baffling theft, stood bathed in the cold light of electric sconces. Hercule Poirot paced its polished oak floor, his steps measured, his mind a whirl of calculations. The empty violin case, still resting on the stage, mocked the gathered clues. Wax, lavender, a hairpin, and cryptic notes in a journalist's hand. To Poirot, the locked room was no mere obstacle. It was a puzzle, a challenge to his little grey cells, and he relished its complexity. Captain Hastings stood by the heavy oak door, his fingers tracing the sturdy lock. "A locked room, Poirot. It's impossible. The door was secure, the window latched, and yet the Stradivarius is gone. Could it be a ghost? His tone was half joking, but his eyes betrayed unease. Poirot's moustache twitched with amusement. Mon ami, ghosts do not steal violins, nor do they leave wax smudges or hairpins. No, this is the work of a human mind, cunning and precise. Let us reconstruct the timeline, Hastings, and see where the truth hides. He began with Maestro Vivaldi's testimony. At 6 o'clock, the violin was in its case, checked before dinner. By 6:30, Lady Langston had locked the music room, with only herself and Mr. Grayson, the caretaker, having access. At 8, when Vivaldi opened the case for his performance, the violin was gone. 2 hours, Poirot mused, a window of opportunity. But how did the thief enter and leave a locked room? He examined the door's lock. A heavy brass mechanism, unblemished by scratches or tampering. The window, tall and framed in velvet drapes, was equally secure, its latch rusted from disuse. Poirot's gaze swept the walls, adorned with pastoral frescoes, their idyllic scenes at odds with the tension within. He tapped a panel near the stage, his gloved knuckles producing a hollow thud. "Curieux," he murmured, pressing harder. The panel shifted, revealing a narrow recess barely wide enough for a man to slip through. "Hastings!" Poirot called, his voice sharp. "Regardez! A hidden passage. This manor, it holds secrets like a miser holds gold." Hastings peered into the dark recess, his face alight with excitement. "A secret passage! That explains it, Poirot." The thief slipped in, took the violin, and vanished. "Perhaps," Poirot said, his tone cautious, "but a passage requires knowledge. Only one familiar with the manor's bones could use it. We must speak with this Mr. Grayson, the caretaker, who knows these walls better than most." They summoned Mr. Grayson, a stooped figure with weathered hands and eyes that seemed to see too much. His grey hair was unkempt, his manner guarded as he entered the music room. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, his voice gravelly, "I heard you wanted me. I've done nothing wrong." Poirot's smile was disarming. "Monsieur Grayson, no one accuses you yet. Tell me, this hidden panel, it is known to you, non?" Grayson's eyes flickered to the panel, then back to Poirot. "Aye, it's an old servant's passage, used in the manor's early days. But it's been sealed for years. I didn't think anyone else knew of it." "And you were in this room at 6:30, with Lady Langston?" Poirot pressed. "I was," Grayson admitted, "helping set the stage. The violin case was there, closed. I left with her ladyship and locked the door myself." Poirot's fingers tapped his chin. "And you saw no one else? No one lingered near the stage?" Grayson shook his head, but his hesitation was a crack in his composure. "No one, sir. Just me and her ladyship." Poirot noted the caretaker's unease, filing it away. He stepped into the passage, a narrow corridor smelling of dust and damp stone. It led to a staircase descending to the manor's lower levels, but a quick inspection revealed no trace of the violin. Only cobwebs and a faint scuff mark on the floor, as if something had been dragged. "This mark," Poirot said, kneeling. "It is recent. The thief, they were careless." Hastings frowned. "But why leave the case behind? Why not take it all?" "A question of time, mon ami," Poirot replied. "The case is bulky, conspicuous. The violin alone could be concealed. This was no theft of passion. It was planned. Returning to the music room, Poirot's mind raced. The hidden panel suggested an inside job, and Grayson's knowledge of the manor made him a prime suspect. Yet the wax smudge, the lavender scent, and the hairpin pointed elsewhere, perhaps to Clara Beaumont or Lady Langston, and Julian Harper's notebook, with its mention of a broker, hinted at a larger scheme. Poirot turned to Grayson. "Monsieur, you have lived here many years. Have you ever heard of a figure called the broker? A dealer in rare items, perhaps?" Grayson's face tightened. "Never heard of such a person. I keep to myself, sir." "Bien," Poirot said, dismissing him. "But know this, the truth it cannot hide from Hercule Poirot." As Grayson shuffled away, Hastings whispered, "He's hiding something, Poirot. That passage, only he could have used it, surely." "Perhaps," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. "But the clues, they do not yet align. The wax, the lavender, the hairpin, they speak of another hand. We must dig deeper, Hastings, into the manor's secrets and those who guard them." The clock struck 11, its chime a reminder of the fleeting hours. The Stradivarius was out, there, hidden within the manor's labyrinthine walls, and Poirot's little grey cells were alight with the challenge of finding it. Chapter 6. A Melody in the Dark. The corridors of Langston Manor were cloaked in shadow, the hour nearing midnight. The guests confined to the drawing-room under Poirot's orders whispered theories of theft and betrayal, their voices a distant hum. Hercule Poirot, his eyes alight with purpose, led Captain Hastings through a narrow staircase to the manor's attic. The discovery of the hidden panel in the music-room had sharpened his suspicions. The Stradivarius was still within these walls, and the manor's upper reaches, neglected and forgotten, beckoned as a likely hiding place. Hastings clutched a lantern, its flickering light casting eerie shapes on the walls. "This place gives me the creeps, Poirot," he muttered, his breath visible in the chilly air. "All this talk of secret passages and missing violins feels like something out of a Gothic novel." "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice steady. "The Gothic, it is but a trick of the mind. The truth, it lies in facts, not phantoms. The passage we found suggests the thief moved swiftly, perhaps upward. The attic, it is a place to conceal treasures, or secrets." The staircase creaked under their weight, each step echoing in the silence. The attic door, warped with age, groaned as Poirot pushed it open, revealing a cavernous space cluttered with dust-covered trunks, broken furniture, and cobwebs that shimmered like ghostly veils. The air was thick with the scent of mildew, but Poirot's keen nose detected a faint trace of lavender, familiar, elusive, and out of place. He paused, raising a hand. "Écoutez, Hastings. Do you hear it?" Hastings strained his ears, his face paling. A faint, mournful note drifted through the attic, the unmistakable sound of a violin. It was soft, almost ethereal, rising and falling like a sigh. "Good heavens, Poirot! Is that the Stradivarius?" Poirot's eyes gleamed in the lantern's glow. "Perhaps, or perhaps a trick. Let us find the source." They moved deeper into the attic, navigating a maze of crates and draped sheets. The violin notes grew clearer, then faded, as if teasing them. Poirot's steps were deliberate, his gaze sweeping the shadows. Near a cracked skylight, He spotted a pile of old music scores, yellowed and brittle. He knelt, sifting through them until one caught his eye. A handwritten score titled Lamento d'Ombra, with annotations in a sharp, unfamiliar script. The notes were cryptic. Midnight. The broker waits. Deliver. Hastings regardez. Poirot held up the score. This is no ordinary music. These annotations, they speak of a plan, a rendezvous. The broker again. This name, it weaves through our mystery like a leitmotif. Hastings frowned, peering at the paper. But who wrote this? And that violin sound, where's it coming from? Poirot stood, his mind racing. The lavender scent, stronger here, suggested a recent presence. He followed the sound, which seemed to emanate from a corner shrouded in darkness. As they approached, the notes ceased abruptly, leaving only the creak of the manor's timbers. Poirot's gloved hand brushed a heavy curtain, revealing a small alcove. Inside, a single chair sat beside a dusty table, but no violin, no player, only a faint scuff mark on the floor, mirroring the one in the hidden passage. Curieux, Poirot murmured. The violin was here, or something meant to mimic it. A recording, perhaps? Or a live performance to lure us? Hastings shivered. It's uncanny, Poirot. Could someone be toying with us? Clara, maybe? She's a violinist, after all. Possible, but unlikely, Poirot said. Clara is under watch in the drawing room. No, this is the work of someone with access to the manor's secrets, someone like Mr. Grayson, or perhaps another we have yet to consider. He pocketed the annotated score, its cryptic message burning in his mind. The mention of the broker aligned with Julian Harper's notebook, suggesting a coordinated effort. But the violin's absence in the alcove puzzled him. Had the Kirche d'Avenir thief moved it, or was this a deliberate misdirection? The lavender scent, the scuff mark, and the music score were threads in a tapestry, but the pattern remained elusive. As they descended the staircase, the manor's clock struck midnight, its chime reverberating like a warning. Hastings clutched the lantern tighter. What now, Poirot? That music? It's got me rattled. Courage, mon ami, Poirot said, his voice calm but resolute. The music. It was a message, a taunt, perhaps. The thief believes they are clever, but they underestimate Hercule Poirot. We return to the guests and we watch. Someone knows more than they admit. Back in the drawing room, Poirot's gaze swept over the suspects. Clara, her face pale but composed. Harper, scribbling in his notebook. Lady Langston, her smile strained. And Grayson, lingering at the edges, his eyes darting. The lavender scent, the annotated score, and the ghostly melody pointed to a conspiracy. But the Stradivarius remained hidden, its absence a silent challenge to Poirot's intellect. Chapter 7. The Hostess's Secret. The drawing-room of Langston Manor, bathed in the flickering glow of its chandeliers, seemed to pulse with secrets as the night deepened. Hercule Poirot stood near a grand fireplace, its embers casting shadows that danced across his immaculate suit. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, rested on Lady Margaret Langston, the soiree's elegant hostess. Her emerald gown shimmered as she moved among the guests, her smile a polished mask. But Poirot sensed a tremor beneath her composure, a secret waiting to be unveiled. Captain Hastings, ever loyal, hovered nearby, his brow furrowed. Lady Langston seems the perfect hostess, Poirot. But you've got that look. You suspect her, don't you, mon ami? Poirot replied, his voice a soft murmur. Perfection is often a facade. Lady Langston, she is the orchestrator of it this evening, yet her motives, they are not merely musical. Her glances at Maestro Vivaldi, her insistence on this performance, they betray a purpose. Poirot, he will discover what. He approached Lady Langston, who stood near a rosewood table, offering a guest a glass of champagne. Her movements were graceful, but her eyes flicked toward Poirot, wary as a deer sensing a hunter. Madame, he said, bowing slightly. A moment, s'il vous plaît. The theft of the Stradivarius, it has cast a shadow over your splendid soirée. May we speak privately? Lady Langston's smile tightened, but she nodded, leading him to a quiet alcove adorned with velvet curtains. Of course, Monsieur Poirot, I am as distressed as anyone by this dreadful affair. Distressed, oui, but perhaps not surprised? Poirot's tone was gentle, but his gaze pierced. You insisted on Maestro Vivaldi's performance, no? Why was this event so important to you? Her fingers tightened around her silk fan. The maestro is a genius, monsieur. Hosting him elevates Langston Manor's reputation. It was a cultural triumph, nothing more. Poirot's moustache twitched. A triumph, perhaps, but one with a cost. I have heard whispers, madame, of your financial difficulties. The manor, it is grand, but costly to maintain. Was Vivaldi's performance a means to secure funds, perhaps through a deal tied to his Stradivarius? Lady Langston's face paled, but she recovered swiftly. You overstep, monsieur. My finances are my own concern. I invited the maestro for art's sake, not profit. Art we, but art has many admirers, Poirot said, his voice smooth as silk, some less savoury than others. Tell me, madam, do you know a man called the broker? Her fan snapped shut, a sharp click in the silence. I've never heard of such a person, she said, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of recognition. Poirot pressed on, his tone relentless yet polite. Curieux, for his name appears in Monsieur Harper's notebook, alongside your initials. And there is another matter, a connection from your past. A certain art thief, one Victor Duval, known for stealing priceless artifacts. You were acquainted with him in Paris, were you not? Lady Langston's composure cracked, her voice low. That was years ago, Monsieur Poirot. A youthful indiscretion. Victor was charming, but I broke ties when I learned his true nature. I've had no contact since. Yet the theft of a priceless violin in your manor, under your watch, it raises questions, Poirot said. Did you host this soirée to lure the Stradivarius into the hands of someone like Duval, or his associate, perhaps this broker? Her eyes flashed with indignation. You accuse me of orchestrating a theft. I locked the music room myself. I wanted Vivaldi's performance to succeed, not to fail. Poirot's gaze softened, but his mind was unyielding. Then explain, madame, why your financial dependence on this event is whispered among the guests. A successful soirée might attract wealthy patrons, no? Or perhaps a buyer for a certain violin. Lady Langston's hands trembled, her fan dropping to the floor. Very well, she whispered. The manor is in debt. I hoped Vivaldi's performance would draw investors, perhaps even a sponsor to restore our fortunes. But I swear, I did not steal the violin. Poirot retrieved her fan, handing it back with a bow. "Merci, madame. Your candour is noted. But know this, the truth, it cannot hide from Hercule Poirot." As she rejoined the guests, Hastings whispered, "Blimey, Poirot, you've rattled her. Do you think she's in league with this Duval fellow?" "Possible, but not certain," Poirot replied. "Her distress is genuine, yet her past with an art thief, her financial woes, they weave a thread in our tapestry. The lavender scent, the wax, the hairpin, and now this broker. They point to a conspiracy, but the centre remains hidden." He glanced at the drawing-room, where Clara Beaumont stood rigid, watching Lady Langston. Julian Harper scribbled in his notebook, and Mr. Grayson lingered in the shadows, his eyes unreadable. The annotated music score from the attic, with its mention of the broker, echoed in Poirot's mind, linking the clues in a pattern only he could see. The clock struck midnight, its chime a sombre note. The Stradivarius was out there, concealed within the manor's secrets, and Poirot's little grey cells burned with the challenge of finding it. Chapter 8. The Protégé's Confession. The air in Langston Manor's drawing-room was thick with tension, the guests' whispers weaving a web of suspicion as the clock ticked past 1 in the morning. Hercule Poirot stood near a gilded mirror, his reflection a study in calm precision, but his eyes burned with the fire of deduction. Clara Beaumont, the maestro's protégée, sat on a velvet settee, her auburn hair loosened from its pins, her hands twisting a lace handkerchief into knots. To Poirot, her agitation was a symphony of guilt and fear, and he was determined to conduct its truth to the surface. Captain Hastings, ever the empathetic companion, leaned toward Poirot. "Poor Clara looks like she's about to snap, Poirot. Do you really think she's got something to do with the theft?" "Mon ami," Poirot murmured, his voice low. "The heart, it betrays what the lips conceal. Mademoiselle Beaumont's devotion to Vivaldi is real, but so is her resentment. The letter we found, the lavender scent, the hairpin, these clues circle her like shadows. Let us see if she will step into the light." Poirot approached Clara, his manner gentle but unyielding, like a surgeon with a scalpel. "Mademoiselle Beaumont, the hour grows late, and the Stradivarius remains lost. You were near the violin case before it vanished, oui? The maestro, he suspects you. Why?" Clara's eyes, red-rimmed, met his, then darted away. "He's wrong," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'd never betray him. The violin, it's his soul, and I respect that, even if he doesn't respect me." "Respect," Poirot echoed, his tone probing. "You spoke of his refusal to let you shine, to play the Stradivarius. Such denial, it breeds envy, non? Tell me, did you touch the case that evening?" Clara's breath hitched, her hands clenching the handkerchief until her knuckles whitened. I adjusted the music stand as I told you. I might have brushed the case, but I didn't open it. I swear it." Poirot's moustache twitched, his eyes narrowing. "Brushed it, mademoiselle? Or perhaps opened it, to glimpse the instrument you are forbidden to play? The truth, it is better spoken than discovered." Her composure crumbled, tears spilling down her cheeks. "All right," she cried, her voice breaking. "I touched the case, yes. I opened it just for a moment before dinner. I wanted to see it, to feel its weight in my hands. but I didn't take it. I closed it and left it on the stage." The room fell silent, the guests' murmurs halting as they turned to stare. Maestro Vivaldi, slumped in a nearby armchair, lifted his head, his eyes blazing. "Clara, you dared. You touched my Stradivarius." "I didn't steal it," she sobbed. "I only wanted to prove I was worthy. You've kept me in your shadow for years, Enrico. I'm as good as you, but you'll never admit it." Poirot raised a hand, silencing the maestro's retort. "Mademoiselle, your confession. It is a step toward the truth, but not the whole. The lavender scent in the music room, the wax smudge. Do these mean anything to you?" Clara shook her head, her tears slowing. "No, I don't use lavender. And wax. I don't know what you mean." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "Then permit me, mademoiselle, to search your room. If you are innocent, you will not object." Clara hesitated, then nodded, her voice barely audible. "Do what you must. I have nothing to hide." Poirot and Hastings, accompanied by a reluctant Lady Langston, ascended to Clara's guest room on the manor's second floor. The room was modest but elegant, with a four-poster bed and a small vanity. Poirot's eyes swept the space, landing on a pair of silk gloves folded on the vanity. He lifted one, sniffing delicately. The faint scent of lavender clung to it, unmistakable. "Dieu," Poirot murmured, holding the glove aloft. "This, mademoiselle, was in the music room, no? The scent, it matches the one I detected near the violin case." Clara's face drained of colour. "That's impossible. Those are my gloves, but I haven't worn them since yesterday. Someone must have taken them." Hastings frowned. "Taken them? To frame you, you mean?" "Or to use them," Poirot said, his mind racing. "The lavender? It is a clue, but also a misdirection. Someone wishes us to suspect Mademoiselle Beaumont. But why?" He turned to Clara, his voice soft but firm. "This glove, it was in the music room, yet you claim innocence. Tell me, have you enemies here, someone who might wish to cast blame upon you?" Clara's eyes widened. I don't know. Maybe Julian Harper. He's been digging into my past, asking about my rivalry with Enrico. Or—" She hesitated, glancing at Lady Langston. "Her ladyship, she's never liked me. She thinks I'm beneath the maestro." Lady Langston bristled. "That's absurd, Clara. I've only ever supported your talent." Poirot's little grey cells hummed. The glove a new thread in the tapestry of clues. Wax hairpin, lavender, the cryptic letter, and the annotated score. Clara's confession, heartfelt though it seemed, left questions unanswered. Was she a pawn in a larger scheme, or a cunning player hiding her true role? As they returned to the drawing-room, the clock struck 2, its chime a sombre reminder of the night's wait. Poirot's gaze swept over the suspects. Harper, scribbling. Grayson, silent in the shadows. Vivaldi, glaring at Clara. The Stradivarius was still out there, and the thief, perhaps closer than ever, was watching. Chapter 9. The Auctioneer's Gambit. The shadows of Langston Manor deepened as the clock edged toward 3 in the morning, its chimes swallowed by the heavy silence of the night. Hercule Poirot, his mind a whirl of deductions, stood in a dimly lit corridor, the annotated music score from the attic clutched in his gloved hand. The cryptic note, "Midnight, The broker, Waits, Deliver, had ignited his suspicions, pointing to a world beyond the manor's walls. A world of illicit trade where a Stradivarius could fetch a fortune. The name, The Broker, scrawled in Julian Harper's notebook and now on the score, was no coincidence. Poirot was determined to follow this thread to its source. Captain Hastings, his face etched with fatigue, whispered, "Poirot, it's the dead of night. Surely the thief's long gone by now." "Non, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice low but resolute. "The thief remains close, watching, waiting. The score, it speaks of a rendezvous, and Poirot, he does not believe in coincidences. We must venture into the lion's den." Earlier, Poirot had overheard a hushed conversation among the manor's staff. A fleeting mention of an underground auction held in a nearby village, where rare artifacts changed hands in secrecy. The music score's note, combined with Harper's reference to the broker, suggested the Stradivarius might be destined for such a market. With the guests confined to the drawing room, Poirot enlisted Hastings to slip away. Their destination, a disused warehouse on the outskirts of the village, rumoured to host such clandestine gatherings. They left the manor under the cover of darkness, Poirot's black coat blending with the night, his eyes alert for any sign of pursuit. The warehouse, a crumbling relic of the industrial age, loomed, ahead its windows boarded, its door guarded by a burly man with a scar across his cheek. Poirot, ever the master of deception, adopted the air of a wealthy collector. His accent thickened for effect. "I am Monsieur Dubois," he said, flashing a forged card he had prepared earlier. "I was told of an exclusive auction." The guard eyed him suspiciously, but waved them through, muttering about the broker's orders. Inside, the warehouse was a cavern of shadows, lit by flickering lanterns. A small crowd of cloaked figures gathered around a makeshift stage, where a thin man with a pinched face, the auctioneer, displayed a series of artifacts: a jade statue, a Renaissance painting, and then a violin case that made Poirot's heart skip. "Regardez, Hastings," Poirot whispered, his eyes fixed on the case. "It is not the Stradivarius, but a decoy, perhaps. The thief, they test the waters." The auctioneer's voice was sharp, cutting through the murmurs. "A fine violin, rumoured to rival the greats. Bidding starts at £5,000. Poirot's little grey cells hummed. The case was a replica, lacking the distinctive wear of Vivaldi's, but its presence confirmed his suspicions. The Stradivarius was meant for this market. He scanned the crowd, noting a hooded figure in the back, their face obscured but their posture tense. "The broker, perhaps," Poirot murmured to Hastings. "We must listen." As the bidding began, Poirot edged closer, his ears straining for clues. The hooded figure whispered to a companion, their words barely audible. "The real one's coming. Midnight was too soon. Tomorrow, then." Poirot's pulse quickened. The Stradivarius was still in play, its delivery delayed but imminent. He signalled Hastings to stay put and approached the hooded figure, his manner casual but calculated. "Monsieur, a fine evening for rarities, non? I seek a particular violin, a Stradivarius, perhaps." The figure stiffened, their voice low and guarded. "You're late, friend. The broker doesn't deal with stragglers. Tomorrow night, maybe." Poirot's smile was disarming. "Tomorrow, then. But tell me, this broker, He is here?" The figure turned away, melting into the crowd. Poirot did not pursue, knowing discretion was key. He returned to Hastings, his mind racing. "The broker is close, mon ami, but cautious. The violin, it is not here, but it will be. We must return to the manor and watch our suspects." Back at Langstone Manor, the drawing-room was a tableau of tension. Clara Beaumont, her eyes red from her earlier confession, Julian Harper scribbling notes, Lady Langstone, her composure fraying, and Mr. Grayson, silent in the shadows. Poirot's gaze lingered on each. The clues, wax, lavender, hairpin, the cryptic letter, the annotated score, swirling in his mind. The auction had confirmed a larger scheme, and the broker was its linchpin. Hastings whispered, "That was a close call. Poirot, do you think the broker's one of our lot?" "Possible," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. "The lavender glove, the hidden passage, the music score. They point to someone within these walls. Tomorrow's auction will reveal more. But for now we watch and we wait." The clock struck 4, its chime a stark reminder of time's relentless march. The Stradivarius was out there, its fate tied to a shadowy figure, and Poirot's intellect was the only key to unlocking the truth. Chapter 10. The Caretaker's Tale. The pre-dawn hours cloaked Langstone Manor in a hush, broken only by the distant creak of its ancient timbers. Hercule Poirot, his eyes sharp despite the late hour, stood in the manor's shadowed hallway, his mind weaving together the threads of the mystery. The wax smudge, the lavender-scented glove, the hairpin, the cryptic letter, the annotated music score, and the whispers of an underground auction led by the broker. The hidden passage in the music room had pointed to someone with intimate knowledge of the manor's secrets. And Poirot's suspicions now turned to Mr. Grayson, the reclusive caretaker whose guarded demeanour hinted at more than mere loyalty to the estate. Captain Hastings, rubbing sleep from his eyes, followed Poirot toward the manor's lower levels. "Grayson's a queer sort, Poirot," he whispered, "always lurking about, knowing every nook and cranny. Do you really think he's mixed up in this?" "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice a low murmur. "Monsieur Grayson is a man of shadows, and shadows conceal much. His knowledge of the manor's passages, his presence near the music room, he is a piece of our puzzle, and Poirot, he will uncover how he fits." They descended a narrow stone staircase to the cellar, where Grayson was said to keep his quarters. The air grew damp, heavy with the scent of earth and old wood. A single lantern flickered at the bottom, casting long shadows across barrels and crates. Grayson stood near a workbench, polishing a brass candlestick, his weathered hands steady, but his eyes wary as Poirot approached. "Monsieur Grayson," Poirot began, his tone courteous but firm, "the hour is late, yet the truth, it does not sleep. You know this manor's secrets, its hidden passages. The Stradivarius vanished through such a passage, no? Tell me of your movements on the night of the theft." Grayson's hands paused, his gaze flickering to the shadows. "I told you, sir. I was with Lady Langstone, setting up the music room. Locked the door myself at 6:30. Didn't see nothing out of place." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Yet the passage we found, it was known to you. A man with your knowledge could slip in and out unnoticed. And your past, monsieur, it interests me. You were once a musician, were you not?" Grayson's face tightened, his voice rough. "That was long ago. Tried my hand at the violin, but I wasn't good enough. Gave it up and came here to tend the manor. What's that got to do with anything?" "Everything," Poirot said, stepping closer. "A man who loved music, who dreamed of mastery, might resent one like Maestro Vivaldi, whose genius casts a long shadow. Did you envy him, monsieur? Did you see a chance to take his Stradivarius, perhaps for this broker we hear of?" Grayson's eyes flashed with anger. "I'm no thief. I've served this manor for 20 years, loyal as they come. You've got no right to accuse me." "Then show me," Poirot said, his voice calm but unyielding. "Show me your quarters, your tools, your secrets. If you are innocent, you have nothing to fear." Grayson hesitated, then led them to a small room off the cellar, its walls lined with shelves of old tools and dusty books. Poirot's eyes swept the space, landing on a locked trunk in the corner. "What is this, monsieur?" he asked, tapping. "The trunk with his cane." "Just old junk," Grayson muttered, but his hands trembled as he fumbled with a key. He opened the trunk, revealing a collection of musical artifacts. A cracked violin bow, yellowed sheet music, and a small case containing rosin and strings. Tucked beneath was a photograph of a younger Grayson holding a violin, his face alight with hope. Poirot's little grey cells hummed. "A musician's treasures kept hidden. Why, monsieur, do you cling to these relics of a failed dream?" Grayson's shoulders sagged. "They're all I have left of that life. I wasn't good enough, but I loved the music. Never thought to steal from Vivaldi, though. His Stradivarius, it's sacred." Poirot lifted a piece of rosin, sniffing it. No lavender, but a faint trace of wax clung to the edge, similar to the smudge on the violin case. "This wax," he said. "It is like that found in the music room. Did you handle the case, perhaps?" Grayson shook his head. "I didn't touch it, I swear on my life." Poirot's gaze softened, but his mind was relentless. The wax, the passage Grayson's passed, they painted a picture of opportunity, if not motive. He turned to Hastings. "We must explore further, mon ami. The cellar, it connects to the passage we found. Let us see where it leads." They followed a narrow corridor, its walls damp and crumbling, until they reached a dead end. Poirot's fingers traced the stone, finding a loose panel. Behind it lay a small cache, a velvet pouch containing a single violin string, its sheen suggesting recent use. "Curieux," Poirot murmured. "Not the Stradivarius, but a clue. The thief they passed through here." Hastings frowned. "Grayson's. The only one who'd know this place, Poirot. He's got to be involved." "Perhaps," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. "But the lavender glove, the hairpin, they point elsewhere. Grayson is a piece, but not the whole." We return to the drawing room and we watch. The clock struck 5, its chime echoing through the manor's depths. The Stradivarius was still out there, its thief cloaked in the manor's secrets. But Poirot's intellect was closing in. Chapter 11. The Violin's Echo. The first light of dawn crept through the tall windows of Langstone Manor, casting a pale glow over the drawing-room, where the guests, weary and restless, awaited Poirot's next move. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre of the room, his impeccable suit unruffled despite the sleepless night, his eyes alight with the fire of deduction. The clues, wax smudge, lavender-scented glove, hairpin, cryptic letter, annotated music score, and the violin string found in the cellar formed a complex tapestry in his mind. To unravel it, he would stage a performance of his own, a reenactment of the soirée to draw the thief into the open. Captain Hastings, his face etched with exhaustion, whispered, "Poirot, it's nearly 6 in the morning. The guests are on. Edge, what's this about a reenactment? Are you sure it'll work?" "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice steady. "The thief, they are clever, but they are also human. Humans err, and under pressure they reveal themselves. We recreate the moment of the theft, and the guilty, they will falter. Observez." Poirot clapped his hands, drawing the attention of the assembled guests. Maestro Vivaldi, his face haggard, Clara Beaumont, her eyes wary, Lady Margaret Langston, her composure fraying, Julian Harper clutching his notebook, and Mr. Grayson, silent in the shadows. "Mes amis," Poirot announced, "the Stradivarius is still within this manor, and the thief is among us. To find them, we return to the music room, where we shall reenact the events of last evening. Each of you will take your place as you were before the violin vanished." Murmurs of protest rippled through the room, but Poirot's authority was unyielding. He led the group to the music room, where the empty violin case still rested on the stage. The guests took their positions, Vivaldi near the stage, Clara adjusting the music stand, Lady Langston by the door, Harper in the corner, and Grayson near the hidden panel. Poirot, with Hastings at his side, watched every movement, his little grey cells alert for any slip. "Begin," Poirot commanded. "Monsieur Vivaldi, you check your violin at 6 o'clock. Mademoiselle Beaumont, you adjust the stand. Madame Langston, you lock the door at 6:30. Proceed." Vivaldi, trembling, mimed opening the case, his face crumpling as he recalled the theft. Clara moved to the stand, her hands shaking slightly. Lady Langston turned the key in the lock with a deliberate click. Harper scribbled notes, his eyes darting. Grayson stood stiffly, his gaze fixed on the floor. The reenactment unfolded in tense silence, the air heavy with anticipation. Then a sound, a faint haunting violin note echoing from somewhere above. The guests froze, their eyes wide. Hastings gasped, "Poirot! It's the same melody we heard. In the attic." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The thief! They play their hand! To the attic, Vite!" He led the charge up the narrow staircase, the guests trailing behind, their footsteps echoing in the dim corridors. The violin notes grew clearer, a mournful strain that seemed to taunt them. In the attic, the lantern's light revealed the same cluttered space, but the melody came from the far corner, near the alcove where Poirot had found the annotated score. As they approached, a figure darted from the shadows, cloaked in a dark coat, their face obscured. "Stop!" Poirot shouted, but the figure slipped through a side door, the violin notes ceasing abruptly. Poirot and Hastings gave chase, their feet pounding on the creaking floorboards. The corridor twisted, leading to a back staircase, but the figure vanished into the manor's depths, leaving only a faint trace of lavender in the air. Breathing heavily, Hastings panted, "We lost them, Poirot! But that music, it was the Stradivarius, wasn't it?" "Perhaps," Poirot said, his mind racing, "or a clever ruse to distract us. The lavender, it is familiar, no? We return to the guests." Back in the drawing-room, Poirot's gaze swept over the suspects, now dishevelled and anxious. He noticed something curious. Julian Harper and Mr. Grayson stood closer than before, their eyes meeting briefly before looking away. A subtle nod, a shared glance, too deliberate to be chance. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured. "An alliance. Hastings, the journalist and the caretaker, they are linked." He approached them, his voice sharp. "Monsieur Harper, Monsieur Grayson, you were both present during the reenactment, yet your eyes betray a secret. What do you know of this melody, this chase?" Harper smirked, but his hands trembled. "Just watching the show, Poirot. That music? Probably a prank." Grayson nodded, his voice gruff. Nothing to do with me. I was with the others." Poirot's smile was cold. "Yet you know the Manor's passages, Monsieur Grayson, and you, Monsieur Harper, have notes about the broker. Together you form a curious pair. Did you conspire to steal the Stradivarius, perhaps for this auction we have heard of?" Both men protested, but their denials rang hollow. Poirot's little grey cells hummed. The clues, wax, lavender, hairpin, letter, score, and now this alliance, pointing to a deeper conspiracy. The chase had been a distraction, but it had revealed a connection that tightened the net around the thief. The clock struck 7, dawn's light piercing the Manor's gloom. The Stradivarius was still hidden, but Poirot was closing in. Forward, thief's steps echoing ever closer to discovery. Chapter 12. The Final Note. The drawing-room of Langston Manor, bathed in the pale light of dawn, was a stage set for revelation. The guests, exhausted and tense, sat in a semicircle of velvet chairs, their eyes fixed on Hercule Poirot, who stood before the grand fireplace, his posture as precise as his deductions. The clues: wax smudge, lavender-scented glove, silver, hairpin, cryptic letter, annotated music score, violin string, and the hidden panel, had woven a tapestry of deceit. And now Poirot was ready to unveil its pattern. The Stradivarius, he was certain, was still within the manor, and the thief was among them. Captain Hastings, seated to one side, whispered, "This is it, Poirot. You've got them all on edge. Who's the culprit?" "Patience, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice calm but resonant. "The truth, it is like a melody. Each note must be played in order. Mes amis." He addressed the room, his eyes sweeping over Maestro Vivaldi, Clara Beaumont, Lady Margaret Langston, Julian Harper, and Mr. Grayson. The theft of the Stradivarius is no simple crime. It is a symphony of motive and opportunity, and Poirot, he has heard its tune. He began, his hands gesturing with theatrical precision. "The wax smudge on the violin case, it was our first note, not from a candle, for this manor uses electric lights, but from rosin, used by a violinist. The lavender scent, found on Mademoiselle Beaumont's glove and in the music room, suggested a connection, yet also a misdirection. The silver hairpin, not gold as Mademoiselle wears, pointed elsewhere. The cryptic letter, warning Clara to leave the case alone, hinted at a conspiracy. The music score, with its note about the broker, and the violin string in the cellar, spoke of a plan. And the hidden panel, it was the key to the locked room. Vivaldi's voice trembled. "But who, Monsieur Poirot? Who took my Stradivarius?" Poirot's gaze settled on Julian Harper. whose smirk had faded, and Mr. Grayson, whose weathered hands twitched. Monsieur Harper, your notebook named the broker, and hinted at a deal gone sour. Monsieur Grayson, your knowledge of the Manners passages and your past as a failed musician gave you means and motive. Together you formed an alliance. No. Harper laughed, but it was strained. You're grasping, Poirot. I'm just a journalist. Grayson nodded. I've served this manor loyally. I'd never steal. Poirot's smile was cold. Yet the rosin in your trunk, Monsieur Grayson, matches the wax on the case. And you, Monsieur Harper, were seen near the music room before 6, despite your alibi. But you are not the masterminds. No, the true thief is one who used you both. He turned to Lady Langston, whose face paled. Madam, your connection to Victor Duval, an art thief, was no coincidence. You hosted this soirée to lure the Stradivarius, knowing its value to a buyer like the broker. But the plan was not yours alone. Poirot's eyes fixed on Clara Beaumont, who gasped, Mademoiselle, your confession of touching the case was true but incomplete. You did not steal the violin. You delivered it. To whom? To the one whose betrayal you sought to avenge. He paused, letting the tension build. Maestro Vivaldi, years ago in Vienna, you betrayed a young musician, Victor Duval, denying him a chance to play your Stradivarius, ruining his career. Duval, now the broker, sought revenge. He enlisted Lady Langston, whose debts made her vulnerable, and Clara, whose resentment you fueled by keeping her in your shadow. The lavender glove was a plant to frame Clara, but the hairpin, silver, like those Lady Langston wears, betrayed her role. The violin was moved through the hidden passage to the cellar, where it awaits delivery to Duval's auction. Vivaldi's face crumpled. Victor! But he disappeared years ago. He returned, Poirot said, as the broker. Grayson, you provided the passage. Harper, you gathered secrets to ensure compliance. But Lady Langston and Clara, you executed. The theft. Lady Langston stood, her voice sharp. You have no proof, Poirot. Poirot produced the violin string from the cellar. This, madame, was cut from the Stradivarius to stage its absence. The violin is hidden in the cellar's false wall. Behind the panel Grayson knows well. Grayson bolted for the door, but Hastings tackled him. Clara sobbed, I only wanted to hurt Enrico, not destroy him. Lady Langston collapsed, her confession spilling. She had coordinated with Duval, desperate to save the manor. Poirot led the group to the cellar, where he tapped a wall, revealing a hollow space. Inside, wrapped in velvet, was the Stradivarius, its varnish gleaming. Vivaldi wept, clutching it, but as Poirot turned, a question lingered. A second violin string, found in the attic, did not match the Stradivarius. Had Duval another plan, or was there another player? The clock struck 8, dawn fully risen. The thief was unmasked, but one. Note remained unresolved. A mystery for another day. Chapter 13. The Encore. The morning sun bathed Langston Manor in a golden glow, its rays filtering through the drawing-room's tall windows, softening the shadows of the previous night's drama. Hercule Poirot sat in a high-backed chair, his polished shoes crossed, his hands folded over his waistcoat, and his waxed moustache immaculate despite the sleepless hours. the Stradivarius, recovered from its hiding place in the cellar's false wall, rested safely in Maestro Vivaldi's hands, its varnish gleaming like a promise kept. Yet Poirot's mind, ever restless, lingered on the case's final note. A second violin string, found in the attic, that did not match the Stradivarius. A loose thread, perhaps, or a prelude to another mystery. Captain Hastings, nursing a cup of tea, sat opposite him, his face a mix of relief and curiosity. "Well, Poirot, you've done it again. The violin's back, the thief's caught. Quite a show you put on last night. But that extra string in the attic bothers you, doesn't it?" "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice soft but precise, "the case, it is resolved, yet the little grey cells, they do not rest. The Stradivarius is returned, but the second string, it is an echo of something unfinished. Let us reflect, Hastings, on the symphony we have just played." The drawing-room was quiet now. The guests dispersed, their fates sealed by Poirot's revelations. Lady Margaret Langston, her composure shattered, had confessed to her role in the theft, driven by debts that threatened to swallow the manor. Her connection to Victor Duval, alias the broker, had been her undoing. Though Duval himself had slipped through the net, his whereabouts unknown. Clara Beaumont, tearful and repentant, admitted to aiding the theft out of resentment toward Vivaldi, but her remorse had spared her harsher consequences. She had left the manor at dawn, vowing to forge her own path as a musician, free from her mentor's shadow. Julian Harper, the cunning journalist, faced scrutiny for his role in gathering secrets to aid Duval's scheme. His notebook, filled with cryptic notes, was confiscated, and his reputation as a scandalmonger was tarnished. Mr. Grayson, the caretaker, had been detained for his complicity in using the manor's passages, his dreams of music long buried under years of servitude. The wax smudge, lavender glove, hairpin, cryptic letter, and annotated score had all found their place in Poirot's tapestry. But the second violin string remained an enigma. Poirot sipped his tisane, his eyes distant. The motive, Hastings, it was betrayal. Vivaldi's rejection of Duval in Vienna years ago set this in motion. Envy, debt, ambition, they wove the threads, but Duval, he was the weaver. And yet, this string? He produced the thin, coiled string from his pocket, its sheen catching the light. It is too new, too fine for the Stradivarius. Why was it in the attic, where we heard the ghostly melody? Hastings leaned forward. "You think Duval left it deliberately? A calling card, maybe, for another theft?" "Perhaps," Poirot mused, "or a sign that another instrument, another crime, was planned. The broker, he is not one to vanish quietly. This string, it is a note in a larger score, one we may yet play." Vivaldi entered the room, cradling the Stradivarius as if it were a child. His silver-streaked hair was neat again, his eyes bright with gratitude. "Monsieur Poirot, I owe you everything. My violin, my soul, it is restored. But Clara? I failed her, didn't I?" Poirot's gaze softened. "Monsieur, you are a genius, but genius can blind. Mademoiselle Beaumont sought her own light, and in her error she has found it. Encourage her, perhaps, when the wounds heal." Vivaldi nodded, his voice thick. "I will try, and I will play again to honour this instrument and your brilliance." Vivaldi left. Poirot turned to Hastings. "The manor, it will recover. Lady Langston, she will sell assets to settle her debts, but the music, it will endure." "Yet I wonder, Hastings, about the broker. His absence at the auction, his escape. It suggests a larger game." They stepped onto the manor's terrace, the morning air crisp with the promise of spring. Poirot's eyes scanned the horizon, as if seeking Duval's shadow. The clues, they were clear, but this string, it is a whisper of something more, a challenge, perhaps for Hercule Poirot. Hastings chuckled. "Another adventure, then? You never rest, do you?" "Rest, mon ami, is for those without little grey cells," Poirot said, his smile sly. "The world, it is full of puzzles, and Poirot, he is never done solving them." As they prepared to leave, a maid approached, holding a small envelope. "For you, Monsieur Poirot, found in the attic this morning." Inside was a single note, in the same sharp script as the music score. "Until the next performance, monsieur." No signature, but Poirot knew its author. He tucked the note away, his eyes gleaming. The Stradivarius was safe, the thief unmasked, but the broker's shadow lingered. A melody yet to be played.